So tell me your superhero origin story. Where you from? Where's your school? All the good stuff.
Yeah, so I am a lifelong resident. I was born and raised in Sharpsburg, Georgia. Grew up, going to a lot of local things around here. Went to Trinity Christian High School. Graduated from there in 2019, and then from there I spent a year at West Georgia, and then transferred to Georgia Tech, which is where I spent the remainder of my college experience, and that was just a great opportunity. Studied economics, and that was my major. Also did a minor in political science, a minor in history, and a certificate in finance as well. So, and then during that time, I was also involved in a lot of organizations too, which was great. I helped co-found the real estate club at Georgia Tech. Also was an undergraduate Supreme Court justice, so that was a great experience as well.
Wow.
And so, yeah, just had a really great experience there overall. Tech was an awesome place to kind of just grow, and that's also where I kind of got my first experience in politics too, in government.
Yeah,
it's really interesting.
What drew you into politics?
So I first got involved I became interested in politics when I was in high school. This is about during the 2016 election, during the primaries. Mm-hmm. I got super into just watching and just seeing that, I could be part of, something bigger, to actually go and meet these candidates. My dad, he took me to every kind of event I could find. So we went to, I know Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, John Kasich, Trump. I even went to a Green Party event, I saw everything back then. And that really helped kind of inspire or foster my interest in it. And that kind of grew over in high school and college when I developed sort of my own personal political views and learned how I could try to be part of something and make a difference, which that's kind of how I got involved. As far as like getting involved in a professional sense, I started out as an intern for then Congressman Drew Ferguson. I was in his district office and did a lot of constituent casework type things. So that's where I got calls, and there would be things like there was a veteran with PTSD that called who just had terrible mold in his trailer where him and his family lived, and he was just desperate for help. There was another lady who was scammed $70,000 in a crypto scam. So hearing stories like that just really further instilled in me like a desire to help be part of the change and to make a difference.
There's a lot I want to get into on that. Mm-hmm. But one thing I've wondered is how would somebody get in the circle of someone like Drew Ferguson to work in his office? Yeah. Because I know he's not here no more, or he's not in office, but how would somebody get a job with somebody like that and work in the office?
Well, I think the way I got that one is I just applied because the Congress, they do a good internship program where they take people from colleges, especially if you're in the district. I think it's a lot easier.
Do they hit up colleges?
They don't really. It's just sort of, I kind of sought that out. But I think with anything, like later I did some volunteer work with Brian Jack when he was running. And that was a great opportunity just to, if you want to get involved in politics or government, just put yourself in positions where you can meet people. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, I remember before I got involved with him, I was going to every event that I saw that he was going to be at, made a point to speak to him as campaign manager, got involved that way. And that's what ultimately led me getting a job on the Trump campaign. So
you did?
Everything, yes, sir. So everything builds. Everything builds. So you never know where just one, by chance encounter. I met, one of my good friends and current campaign manager just at a event with Brian Jack and Marjorie Taylor Greene. So you just never know what kind of conversations could lead to something bigger.
That's awesome, because I've wondered how that happens. Mm-hmm. The stereotypical thing is a cousin of somebody that works there, and it's all like who you know and have a good uncle that's in Congress or whatever. Right. But
it's very much about who you know. But
it is.
But it's also a lot more. Well, you can get to know those people, so you can break into that. Just make the effort. Networking is huge in all things in life, but especially in politics and things like that.
Well, you can't get a job these days without knowing somebody,
right?
I mean, you can't just blind apply somewhere and your name gets picked out. Like, you got to stand out and you got to know somebody.
Absolutely.
To get that. So I guess it's the same thing.
I was a little bit, I think when I graduated from tech, I just thought, okay, well, I went to this college, like it's going to be easier to get a job. It's not like that anymore. You can I put in for, probably well over 100 job applications, and it's just tough. Ended up getting an offer in commercial real estate that I did turn down for the job in the Trump campaign, which is I'm glad that I did that, but
For sure.
there's just networking is so key. If there's anything that I took, probably the most valuable thing, not any class that I took at Georgia Tech, not any club I was part of, the most valuable thing that I learned was networking and like how to present yourself, how to, what side of your chest do you wear your name tag, how to shake people's hands. I think those things, they go a long way when it comes to making those connections.
And that's a whole skill you have to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Like some people are just naturally charismatic, but for me, it's a thing that I had to learn how to do that. Because I'm very much an introvert, and only recently have I been able to be better at that. And it's a skill that I've had to learn over the past year, to be honest with you. So that's a whole new or a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, because even if it doesn't come naturally, you can still make a big difference. If you just put yourself out there. I remember when I was working on the Trump campaign, I was doing a lot of phone calls. At the beginning, I hated it. I just did not feel comfortable calling these people, asking them to be a volunteer for a yard sign. But then the more I did it, the more repetition you have, the easier it gets. And that's something that it's true what they say, practice does make perfect. And
it does. And that's like any, I help people with my media company. I help people feel more comfortable speaking on camera, because that's not a skill that people have naturally either. But I always tell them it's like going to the gym. Each rep you do, the better you get, and the stronger that muscle gets. So it's the same thing. It's just reps. It's reps. So what all did you do for the Trump campaign?
So I was a political coordinator. I was working because the way it worked is they had a state headquarters in Buckhead. That's where I was out of mostly, but they sent me all across the state. On any given day, I'd go into work. I'd never know when I was going to leave, because that's just the nature of how campaigns operate. And, did a lot of supply logistics, delivered materials to I think we had 13 regional offices throughout the state. Each office had a regional field director, and they had some people under them too. So that was kind of the structure. So I think what was unique about my kind of experience there is that I got to be very close to the senior leadership there. We're, Chairman Josh McCoon, was kind of around him a lot, and some of the other folks there. So that was a good opportunity, but got to be part of doing several Trump rallies that they did. And that was a great experience as well.
Now, was this in 16 or 24?
In 24.
24, so just recently.
Yep. So I was right after I graduated from college.
So backing up, what led you to Tech from West Georgia?
I just always... When I graduated from high school, I really had no idea where I wanted to be, where I wanted to go. I kind of decided late where I wanted to go to college. In fact, I was a senior in high school in my last semester when I took a class in economics. And I realized this is something that it combines so many things that I'm interested in, whether that be history, government, policy, things like that. Learning about how, the financials impact, the global economy on that scale. So then I decided I wanted to do economics from there. And I saw, Georgia Tech has a economics program. My father, he had gone to Georgia Tech many years ago. He studied physics. I didn't think Tech had anything for me because I'm not really that math, science-y kind of person.
Yeah, and honestly, you said that you went to Tech for economics, and I was like, well, I mean, I guess it makes sense because it's a math kind of thing, but I never would have put that with Tech.
Right. They do have a great business school. And they're developing that up. They're growing a lot. They're just building a new campus, or not campus, but a new building there to do a lot of their to grow the Scheller things. So they're growing it a lot. But yeah, it's not what you traditionally would think of. I didn't know they had that when I toured. When I toured it in high school, I was like, well, I love the campus. I love so many things about it, but I just don't know if there's anything for me here. So then when I did find that out, I was like, okay, well, I want to get on this path to transfer, and spent the next year or so trying to navigate that, and was able to get in, and I'm really happy that I went there.
Yeah. Did you enjoy your time at West Georgia?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I was mostly at the Newnan campus. Actually, so that's a really cool little place to get started. You really get to know your professors there, small classes. So I have had a great experience there, and if I hadn't gotten into Georgia Tech, I would have probably stayed there and finished out at Carrollton.
I probably should know this, but is the Newnan campus a 4-year school?
They are. They have some. They have some majors. Back when I was there, I think it was mostly like nursing. You could do all 4 years, but now I think they've added a business program and maybe a few others too.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I don't know much about the Newnan campus. My brother graduated from the Carrollton campus several years ago.
Oh, nice.
And so I know he went there, and that's the big one. But I didn't know that the Newnan one was more of a 2-year school or a 4-year.
Mm-hmm.
So that's awesome. So you went to Ferguson's office. How did hearing those stories? I'm sorry, this is jumping around, but I wanted to make sure I came back to this. How did hearing those stories affect you, and did it shape what you do now?
Well, I think it shaped a lot of things about how I feel about that, because, I think sometimes you see on the news one side of politics, but then when you actually hear the stories from constituents, from people like in your community, and you see how the policies that people make in Washington or at the state capitol, they actually affect people greatly. So you could have a new program that comes out that could really change people's lives. And yeah, those stories definitely, they hearing how people were suffering under like different scams or other things that happened, just really, it moved me a lot to want to continue to be involved. And not to say that, government can't solve everything, obviously, but there's a lot of things that if we had the right program, or maybe a new tax cut, or just at least somebody advocating on your behalf in the legislature, in government, I think that makes a big difference. So those experiences, they continue to drive my interest. So after I did finish at Ferguson's office, I did an internship at the state capitol under Governor Kemp, and they placed me under Chancellor Sonny Perdue. So I got to know him a little bit, and that was really interesting to learn about that legislative process and actually figure out, okay, well, you've learned about this is what the problems are. How do I take those and actually, how do you actually get stuff done?
Yeah. You've been around some pretty influential figures in the party.
Yeah.
I'm sure you couldn't help but learn a lot from each one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious because this is a local leaders podcast, and I do like to touch on leadership. What leadership qualities do each one possess that are different in how they shape their offices?
I think the best ones are ones that are not just good at speaking or talking, but they're good listeners. I think being a good listener is very key to leadership.
I completely agree. Agree. I think that we, as humans, but especially leaders, I think that you're a more effective leader if you speak to listen and not speak to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in a conversation, you need to ask questions, because if you don't know what somebody's thinking or how they feel, you can't help them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that, sorry, this is your show. I can geek out about this. I think in any leadership position, especially a politician, you're servant leaders, and you're here to serve. And I think that in order to do that, you got to know what's going on, and not what you think, but you got to hear from them.
Right.
And I think you got to listen.
Right. And it's going to make the people feel a lot more included too. Like, I know any job that I've had, and it's like, well, if, Chancellor Perdue asked me a question, like my opinion on something, or if a congressman does, that feels really validating too, just to think, well, someone in that position, is actually cares about what I think about something. Mm-hmm. So that's really effective. And to be, you never want to get to a place, like no matter where you are in government, to where you think, I know everything, because you certainly don't, and certainly I'm someone that always likes to learn from people that have been there, that have done those things, because there's no one that understands it better. And that could be with anything, but especially true in government.
For sure. What is your definition of a leader when it comes to politicians?
I think it requires several aspects. I think one, it requires is humility. As I kind of touched upon earlier, you never want to think you're too big for the office. You never want to feel like you're too important, because at the end of the day, you're serving the constituents and the people's interests. So it's an honor, and people shouldn't take that for granted. And then I think the other thing it requires is accountability, in terms of saying, I think it was Harry Truman that said, the buck stops here, something like that. I think that's what a good leader should do. They should take responsibility for the things that happen, not just for their own actions, but for the actions of people that they're responsible for too. So not trying to pass on blame, to just be there, and then to also be a good listener, as I said earlier, just someone that listens to the concerns, to be accessible. I think a lot of those things are what makes up a good leader, especially in politics.
I agree. I think one of my favorite books that I've read over the past few years is Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. That book has really changed my life on many ways. And I think a lot of politicians, both locally, state, and federal, should live by that a little more. I think that I don't think it's a bad thing for them to say, you know what, I messed up. I was wrong. And that's on me. I know there's a lot of people telling them not to do that. But I think that would go a long way with people. I really do. Because nothing frustrates me more than to see a politician know they were wrong, but just keep hammering the fact that they back what they did.
Right. Like I respect someone a lot more if they just take ownership instead of just doubling down.
Yeah.
So
I agree. Because, it helps me in my marriage. You know, like it's because both of us read that book. And we're both, it's like, you know what? I messed up here. Or I should have done this differently. And this situation happened because I didn't do this or, you know, or whatever. It's like there's always a reason and always a way that you can own any kind of situation and any kind of decision, whether it's true or not. There's a way you can own it and gain the respect of the other person, I believe.
That's true. Yeah, relationships are a lot about that.
Yeah. And I think that's what campaigns are, right? You're building trust and you're building relationships with your constituents. So I think that, I would think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think in your situation, you're working right now to build trust. And I'm not saying you got things to apologize for or take ownership of, but I think that whatever you can do to build that trust with the people who are going to vote for you I would think is mission number one.
Yeah, absolutely. I recognize, I'm 25 years old. I'm one of the youngest Republicans running for state house in Georgia. And I recognize that, I don't know everything. I'm going to have to go in when I get in there and I'm going to have to learn from people like from the House caucus, from people that have been there a while. But I think like not even being apologetic for it, but just like recognizing that people may have some concerns about that, but I think going in there and just having that humility to say, well, let me learn from you. Let me figure out what needs to be done here, and to listen to people. Like I always want to be accessible. Yeah, I think that's something that I think people are going to respect a lot more.
Well, that's owning the situation, right? Like you haven't messed up or anything, but there's owning the situation of, look, I'm young. There's plenty of stuff I got to learn. There's stuff they've got to learn, and they've been there for 20 years, right? So it's like, I think that's where I think people get in trouble is when they've got experience, so they think that there's nothing else to learn.
It's true.
So I agree. Like having that humility is important. What made you decide, and who approached? So this is a whole bunch of questions in one. Who approached you, or how did you decide to run for your seat?
Yeah, so I had not originally intended to run for the seat, but I was having lunch with a state representative, and he was like, well, we don't really have a candidate yet for this district. Like, why don't you think about running? And I thought about it, prayed about it, and then I was like, well, why not? I think what this district and community really needs right now is leadership. And I think especially they need someone who's fresh leadership. My opponent is well into retirement age, so having some new ideas and fresh blood, a new generation to kind of represent people, not only of my generation, but from every generation that feel like, the economy's not working for them, and to feel like they're just stuck. They're not they're frustrated about not being able to put their kids in the schools that they want, and a whole litany of other things. But there's a lot of things that I wanted to run for that. So the House caucus, everyone's been very supportive so far, and this has been just a great honor for me to run and to learn new things every day.
That's great. That's great. What do you feel is one of the top issues that you need to help your district?
I think just being an accessible leader, for one. I don't know if you've had trouble getting your mail. I'm not sure. A lot of people have in this area. There's a Palmetto, they have a mail sorting facility that has had tremendous issues. They have one of the worst, I guess, lost package rates or something like that. In fact, I read a review that said, my package went through Ukraine, and then got stuck in Palmetto, Georgia. And it's like, if your package is getting stuck after getting through a war zone, that's serious problems. On top of that, 3 people actually, unfortunately, lost their lives in that facility in the past few years. And, even Senator John Ossoff, who I disagree with on a lot of things, he demanded accountability and went there and was like, what's going on? To my knowledge, I don't think my opponents looked into it at all or been there. So I think that's just one example, of course, but having a local presence, someone that's actually going to demand accountability when is necessary, someone who will ask the right questions and to learn. So I think leadership's the number one thing, but there's plenty of other issues too. Like, I think a lot of people are faced with trouble about buying a house, especially people, of my age. Like, how are they going to do that? So I think looking at ways that we can actually reduce housing prices, increase the supply is another key issue.
I think those are two very important things. What can someone in the state house do with that? Because I think a lot of people, especially the housing issue, might think that's more federal. What can someone in the state house do to help with both of those issues?
Yeah. Well, I would argue with the housing, I think it's actually quite local. Like, we could slash permit costs, to build new homes. That's something that I think would help tremendously to help try to foster the housing supply increase. Another thing we can do is I'm proposing a tax credit for married couples. This would encourage new families to be created, and it's a credit that would increase the number of years that you've been married. Mm-hmm. I think we've lost a lot by moving away from the traditional family unit. I think getting back to that, including that tax credit, could be used for some kind of down payment assistance. And of course, hammering out the details, with the colleagues in the House would be something that I'm looking forward to do. As far as like demanding accountability, I know there are certain inquiries that can be done, investigations as well. So just looking into those things when they arise. But, people think a lot of politics happens at the big federal level, like in Washington. A lot of things happen here locally.
I would say that the most important things happen locally.
Definitely.
The things that affect us day to day happen locally.
Right. Like who's the ones that are approving the data centers, being built, or other things like that around here? They're local councils, commissioners, things of that nature. Mm-hmm. So politics is very local. And if you choose to get involved at that small level, you can have a much bigger impact than you think.
Yeah, I agree. Do you have an opinion on the data centers?
I do. So actually, it's interesting. When I was at Georgia Tech, I took several classes in commercial real estate. Uh-huh. And at Georgia Tech, they have like a focus on data centers just because technology is kind of in their wheelhouse. So have some like a unique perspective on that. I think there's a lot of people that have concerns about data centers, and that's very, very valid. They use up a lot of water right now. I know they're trying to move from water-cooled to air-cooled, but that's something that's taking time. But in my opinion, the biggest issue is that where they put them, like I know in Fayette County, they have one basically in a very residential area. There's these Georgia Power came in, they put these large poles in these people's front yards. I assume they did it through eminent domain, probably didn't compensate them a whole lot. So I think we can have the best of both worlds. We can have the benefits of data centers, but also keeping them largely to industrial areas, industrial zoned areas. And if we did that, that would eliminate a vast majority of the concerns that people have with them. You wouldn't have complaints about the hum or the noise pollution, the light pollution, things like that. So I think because a lot of you could slash taxes with data centers in a lot of counties. So. And they do bring some jobs. They bring some other, key things that we need in our communities. But we can do that while also respecting people's property rights, while respecting people's liberties. And I think just keeping them in more industrial zoned areas would be critical for that.
That makes a lot of sense. My wife asked me the other day because we were downtown Newnan at a marketplace, and there are people, having petitions signing against the ones here for project sale.
Mm-hmm.
And she's not political at all, so she has no idea what's going on. So she asked me about them. And I said, that's what this is about. She goes, well, why wouldn't we want one? I'm like, I hear both sides of the argument. I can't disagree with either side.
Mm-hmm.
Like I do genuinely understand both.
Right.
AI is not going anywhere. I think they're needed. I think where is the question. I think that it can bring revenue into the city and the county, which can help. Now, I think that the right people need to make that money go to the right places. I think that's key. But I think it's the where. I think you're right there. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on it. Like I'm not sold yes or no, die hard on for or against. It's like the devil's in the details, right?
Right.
As most things.
That's true. And there is a way to make probably both sides happy. If we just listen to where are we putting these things? And if we keep them out of the way of where people are living and have to deal with, then I think people could enjoy the benefits, but also, we could respect, what people want that are against it too. Because I'm like you, I see both sides of it. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of great economic impact that can happen. So I don't want to say, some counties have just said, okay, we're banning data centers, but, for us, for like say Coweta County, I'm not opposed to having a data center. I just want it to be in the right place. Mm-hmm. I know project sale is a huge project, but if we keep it where it needs to be, proper guidance, and then because data centers, they are getting smaller, and that's a good thing. And then they also are shifting, to use less water and power, and that's also really critical.
Well, I think technology, as it develops, will make things easier. Because, just look back. Granted, it's been 30 years ago, but what we have right here in our phone was massive warehouse-sized computers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So things got better. Things got smaller. So I think that can happen over time. So things can get smaller.
Right.
Now, I say that, but we may need more data and more power pushed through. So it may not. I'm by far not the expert on this. But in my head, that's how I see it. Mm-hmm. Right. It's just, honestly, and I'm probably in the minority on this, living here, but mainly because it doesn't affect me, but that's not on top of my list of issues.
Right.
But it will affect people, and it can benefit me more than it can hurt me individually.
Sure.
But if I was sitting in that seat, then it would be a decision that I would want to listen to smarter people than me before I decided. Mm-hmm. I think the issue that happened this past week at the time of filming this, they didn't do that. The county commissioners didn't listen to the people, and it goes back to what we talked about.
Right.
You got to listen. Mm-hmm. And we can question why they didn't listen, but they didn't. Because from what I understand, the majority of people don't want them.
Right.
Now, is it a messaging thing? Which that's any policy issue, right? Are you selling it? Are you selling the benefits? I think one of the things that because I haven't been involved in politics for most of my life, really the past couple of years. So I'm learning a lot. I'm coming at this in a very early stage. But how I relate to it is a branding and messaging thing, because that's what I do. And I think that, and sales, because if your messaging sells your stance on an issue and sells the benefits of it, then you'll get people to buy in more. And I don't think people do that well, especially on this issue.
Right. Yeah, because I do think there are a lot of benefits, and we can have them. We can also respect people's property rights, people's concerns about environmental impacts, things of that nature. It's just about talking to people. I think you don't need to rush votes. You can take your time,
Right.
really research the issue, the impact, and come to a solution that makes the majority of people somewhat happy, where you can be like, well, both sides are, kind of getting sort of what they want, compromising some. I think we can't achieve that. We just have to work to compromise.
Oh, I agree. Is there anything that you want us to touch on?
Your museum idea.
Yeah, sure.
How do you set that up?
So we can talk about, you could ask me about maybe some of the key things that, I'm trying to do. I can kind of break it down a little bit and set that up.
Okay. All right. So let's get off the data centers, because that's been beat to death.
Right.
So what, with you coming into this race, what's your vision of what you want to do, and what do you want to implement as a leader for your district?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think that we can break down a lot of the things that I want to do into three overall ideas.
Absolutely.
So that would be to serve Georgia, to build Georgia, and to celebrate Georgia. In terms of serving Georgia, I want to work with the state legislator to eliminate income tax. I think we could also eliminate property tax up to a certain point as well.
So if I can pause.
Sure.
I don't think that's getting a lot of credit and a lot of publicity.
Mm-hmm.
But I've known about that for a few years, that they've been working to eliminate the income tax for the state. So that's a big thing.
Yeah, they want to get it done, and I want to work with the House caucus to actually see it through. I think we can do something similar to property taxes. I know some small towns have some concerns about it, like what will happen to their communities if you make that tax base. I think if we do it for homes under a certain value, especially, I think you can make that happen a lot easier. So just hammering out the details on that, I think we can get it done. And additionally, some people are concerned about, this is something that I've actually thought about for years, and kind of inspired by something that happened to a relative of mine who basically got caught up in the wrong place in the wrong time and was facing legal charges for several years that just kept dragging out. He was poor. He didn't have the money for a lawyer, so he, had a public one that kind of just dragged on. But what I think would be especially helpful is if we had some kind of scholarship program to where people that, are students of Georgia public law schools at their graduating, to help incentivize them to enter, like being a public defender. May not be the highest paying legal job, but it is a very important one too. To have their tuition either partially or fully reimbursed after maybe 3 to 5 years working as a public defender, I think, to help instill. So that's one thing. In terms of building Georgia, I think the marriage tax credit that I talked about earlier, I think that's going to be huge. Slashing regulations and permit costs to build these homes, I think that'll be huge. I also want to create a pipeline to where everyone that goes to a Georgia college, working with companies to make sure they get at least one paid internship, I think would be huge to kind of connect the workforce. Because a lot of people my age, they graduate college. I know we talked about this a little earlier, but they're having trouble finding an opportunity or a job. Increasing access to high schools trade programs, I think would be huge, just to let people know, well, they don't have to go to college to succeed. They could also go to like a trade school. They could do any number of apprenticeships, any number of things to find a great career path. So connecting people with the jobs. And then in terms of celebrating Georgia, we live in the greatest country in the world. And Georgia is one of the greatest states in the country. We have such a rich history from our time in colonial America to through the Civil War, to the Civil Rights Movement. There's just so much that we have to celebrate in this state. So maybe one of the most unique things that I'm proposing is to create something called the Museum of Georgia, which should be modeled at the Smithsonian in D.C. And there's a few states that have something a little similar. But it would be a place where people can come and just learn about Georgia's history in partnership with the University System of Georgia. We could have the best lecturers and authors, come and speak on this, and have exhibits about our great history, maybe exhibits on figures that are important, like Oglethorpe or Martin Luther King Jr. or George Whitefield, some of the important people that have made the state what we are today, celebrating our unique place, geographical position in the country with our unique flora and fauna. There's just so many ways we could go with this, but I think having something like this is very critical, especially because we have to educate our kids to love our country, not just to love our country, but to love our state too, because they should be really proud of it.
I completely agree. I think that's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
So you have it all mapped out in your head, don't you?
Yeah, a little bit. I think we can. Some people may be concerned about how do we fund it. I think we can raise a lot of money in public-private partnerships to get that done, partnering with the university system, as I mentioned before.
Yeah.
And, just put it somewhere in the center of the state where people can come, be a great place for people to go, make it reduce cost or, free for students, people that have student cards. I think it could be a really cool idea.
I think that there could be a good donation campaign set up there too. Because I think there'd be a lot of people that would want to donate to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I was thinking there's really nothing like it. I mean, we have lots of museums in Georgia. They cover specific things, but like just one place that kind of tells their whole story, I think would be really cool.
The good and bad.
Mm-hmm. The good and the bad. Because people need to learn it all. Because if we don't, learn from history, we're doomed to repeat it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, there's a whole thing a few years ago about removing things from our histories. And I mean, I understood the why they wanted to do that and people wanted to do that, but history's history. And if we don't learn from it, we can't adapt from it.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't get better, So I think learning the good and the bad is good because that's how we grow.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we get better. So I think that's a great idea. I love that.
Definitely.
I love that.
Yeah, I'd love to, regardless of what happens, that's something that I want to, push to get done.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'd be, something really big for our state. And I think we could get it done too.
That sounds like it would be a good bipartisan deal too.
That's true. Because, so I may be running with an R next to my name, but, I'm running to be a representative for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
The positions that I'm taking are things that are bipartisan that, that would just help everyone. I'm running to be someone that's a community leader, not super partisan. I do have conservative values and conservative positions that kind of guide how I make decisions, but I want to be someone that anyone can have a conversation to and be proud of. I'm proud that I'm their representative.
Yeah. I love that. That's a great answer. You're running in a district that includes Coweta and Fulton, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that's a tough district for a Republican to try to win.
Yep.
What gives you, I won't say hope, what gives you the knowledge and the confidence that you can win?
Right. Well, I mean, I know if you look at the last couple results from the elections, you would say, well, we have a tough fight ahead. And we certainly do. It's not going to be easy to get it done. But I believe that the key to actually winning in a district like this is to make those connections with the voters, to work relentlessly every day, knocking enough doors, putting up signs, having a meeting with business leaders and members of the community to show that, just because, I may be a Republican does not mean that I'm a scary person,
Right.
I have policies that would help benefit them too. And just working tirelessly every day to actually achieve a result, because the leadership that we have now, the current representative, is not there, just absent from the day-to-day lives of people. I mean, I grew up in going to places like Palmetto and Fairburn, which is, where my area covers. And, there's a lot that can be done to improve the community that we're just not doing. There's even some homelessness that I see, and a lot of things that we could address. So just going in there and just marketing our ideas in a better way, because I think, and I do believe that it may sound crazy, but I think with enough effort, we certainly can win and at least make it a lot, very competitive.
It's showing up, basically. It's showing up and being visible to the people. And that's how you can build trust. And it all goes back to what we said earlier. It's building trust.
Absolutely. Because, I'm going to be at every forum, every meeting that I can be at, just to be there every day to show that. And then when I get elected, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm not going to disappear from people's lives. I'm going to be there listening to their concerns And just to know that they have a voice for them. Every single one in that district has a voice that cares about their interest and what they have going on in their lives.
Yeah. And that reminds me that, we talked about being a servant leader. And I think politicians as a profession get painted with the same brush. And they're serving themselves and not the people. And it sounds like that you want to serve the people.
Absolutely.
And that's refreshing.
Exactly. It's like I'm not going up to the state capitol to make friends. I'm going there to make laws. And that's one thing that I've always wanted to do, is just to go, be someone that people can work with. But also, I want, at the end of the day, I want my constituents to know that, I'm working for them, not the other way around.
Have you talked to the local representatives that are in the House now already?
I've had conversations with some of them. Yeah, a lot of people in the House have been very supportive. They said they're behind me 100%, and that's been very helpful. I want to continue working with them over the coming months to come up with a plan to, I've also spoke with Congressman Jack as well, and he's been very supportive. So we're right now, because I don't have a primary challenger, which means we can just, look forward to November, gear up and get things ready. And we're putting the things in place now, building that support, building the things that we need. We've been working on the website, the signs. So all that's coming.
Good.
So, we're going to need lots of help, to get it done, but I think we can do it.
Well, we'll let it have you back the closer we get to November, and help give one final push.
Yeah.
And get your message out there, because a lot can happen between now and then, and there's a lot more to talk about. So we can definitely do a part 2.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you'd want to.
That'd be great.
One thing I ask everybody is, in 10 years, how would you want the community to, let me try that again. There's one question I ask everybody, and it's, in 10 years from now, how do you want to be known in this community?
Yeah, I love that. It's a fantastic question. And if I had to say, I'd rather, not be remembered for who I am, but be remembered for what I do. I want to be remembered as someone that listens, someone that was there every day to, try to make a small difference. If I can be part of a bigger change, even just play a small role in that, that'd be extremely rewarding. If, there's a few young couples that can buy homes because of the policies that I try to help implement, if there's families that can be proud that their daughter or son is going to the school that they feel like they should be at, if there's people that feel safer in their communities, then that's all a big win to me.
Yeah.
I want to be remembered for just knowing that I cared, that I tried my best to make a difference. And if that's what I remember for, then I can be very proud of that.
That's a great answer. I love that. So how can people find you?
They can check us out at our website, cookforgeorgia.com. They can also check us out on social media. We're also at Cook for Georgia on every single platform. And feel free to, we have a donation link if you'd like to help out, or we also have ways that you can sign up to get a yard sign, to volunteer, because we're going to need all hands on deck and all the help we can get going forward. So really just excited to see this thing through.
Absolutely. Daniel, thanks so much.
All right. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.